Hello, everyone at home. I hope you're having a great morning so far. We really miss you here at school, and we can't wait to have you guys back with us. So today we're going to be creating a lesson based off of the book, The Noon Balloon. Hopefully you will read the story before you start your art project, and you can even look at the different chart that I have attached to you guys that shows different types of lines. While you're reading the story, I hope that you guys make sure that you are focusing on the different types of lines and designs that are inside the balloon and in the background of the pictures. We're going to create a balloon drawing today using different types of lines. Let's get started. Okay guys, for this activity you are going to need a pencil with an eraser, some scissors, some glue, and you will want to use either tempera paints or watercolor paints. I'm going to be using watercolor paints today. And you want to make sure that you have either a black crayon or a black oil pastel as well. So I'm going to grab that really quick. You guys can see all of my materials right here really quickly. And let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is we're going to want to make the outline of a balloon. And since sometimes it's kind of hard for us to draw and get both sides the same size, what I want you guys to do is take a piece of paper and fold it over from one side to the other. So what I'm doing is I'm folding my left side over to my right side. And I'm going to make a crease. I'm going to press down in the middle like this and just press my fingers out all the way down to each end and stop. And now I have a paper that is folded in half and creased. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a curved line that looks kind of like a backwards C. It's going to start up here at the top. It's going to come out and touch my edge or almost touch my edge, and then come back around and down in and curve just a little bit, just like that. If you flip it around and look at it from the bottom, it kind of looks like the letter C, but the top has almost a little lip on it. So that's what that would look like. After you do that, you would want to make a little line that comes across from the inside edge to that line right there. So we're going to connect them. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our scissors. We're going to cut on this line, and we're staying on the line, okay? So we want to stay on this line. And after we finish cutting that out, we're going to open it up. And we are going to have the top of our balloon. Perfect. Great job. Now, you can do one of two things. You can either use this balloon as your art that you want to paint on, or you can take it and trace around it on another piece of paper and use that as your balloon. What I'm going to do is just take it, go ahead and trace around it on another piece of paper so that I have my entire balloon on this paper and both sides are equal now. And actually, this is symmetrical. If you were to cut it down the middle, it is the same on both sides. That's called symmetry. When you cut something down the middle and it is the same on both sides. All right, so now I have my balloon. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and draw a few different types of line designs on here. So feel free to do a few of the different ones that you already know or some from the chart that I attached. I'm just going to make a few on here really quick and keep going with that. Okay, so I've finished drawing my lines. Now I'm going to add two vertical lines at the bottom, right here and right here, and then I'm going to add a rectangle. This is going to be the box of my hot air balloon where people can stand inside of it. Okay. Now I have drawn this. Next, I'm going to take my black crayon and I'm going to trace over everything on my balloon, including the outside edge and the box and the strings as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. So I have now finished this, and I even got a little bit too hard with my crayon and accidentally broke it. Like, don't do that at home. Sometimes I have a bad habit of doing that. All right, next I'm going to take my watercolors, and I'm going to paint each section in with my watercolors. Remember when you're using watercolors that you want to pet them like you pet a cat's back very softly. You're adding water to them, so you're using mostly water and just a little bit of color, and you are petting them. You're never digging your brush into them like this. I see people doing this and it ruins the paints. Plus, you're getting way more paint on the brush than what you need. So you're just petting it, and then you're going to go across the top, and you're going to paint. Again, you do not have to use the color that I am using. You can choose to use whatever color you would like. We're going to go ahead and paint each section in neatly. And what are you going to do in between changing colors? You're going to do what? You're going to rinse your brush out, right? Oh, I need some clean water, don't I? Okay. So I'm painting my next section in. It's okay if your paint gets on top of the crayons. Remember, we've talked about this before. Crayons have oil in them and watercolors have water in them. And oil and water cannot mix. If you ever have gotten with somebody in the kitchen and tried to mix oil, cooking oil, with water, it doesn't happen. Do you know what happens? That's right. The water and the oil don't mix, and you will see the oil float. Sometimes you'll even see it float in little bubbles. It's pretty cool. So just remember that when you're using crayons and watercolor, the crayons and watercolor really don't mix. The crayons actually repel, or they push away the watercolor because of the oil in the crayons. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish painting this part out. Okay, so I finished painting my hot air balloon and my box that goes to it in, and next I'm going to take another piece of paper and I'm going to paint the background in a vertical direction. Since all of my lines on here are horizontal, I will paint the next lines in the background vertical, and maybe even some that are diagonal. So in my background, I'm just going to put in a few colors, maybe about 2 or 3. And I'm going to paint from one side all the way across to the other, making sure that I'm adding enough water to my paint and not digging my brush in it, but petting my paint like I pet a cat's back, remember? And let's see here. I think I'll put a little bit of orange in here. This is going to be my background. And it's okay if your colors mix on your paper. You are always welcome to mix your colors on your paper. Just try to not mix them in your paint palette, because then the colors get mixed up and then you end up with some yucky colors in your paint palette that you didn't want to be there. Now, if you can look and see what my paper is doing, my paper's pretty thin, and the reason it's doing this is because there's too much water in my brush. So after you get enough water in your paint, what you can do is take your fingers and you can actually squeeze that brush out. You see what I'm doing? And it's dripping water down in there. And then you can use that to mix your paint up, which is what I'm doing. I'm not going to go back over this part right now because it's a little bit too wet, but I'm actually glad that happened so you guys can see what happens when you have too much water in your brush. What I'm going to do instead is go to a different color and use that. Use a little bit of red in here and try to not use as much water and get that painted on there. And then I'm going to go and start over again. You do not have to have a pattern in your background. I just am because I like it. And if you're using a thicker paper, this more than likely will not happen. If you're actually using a watercolor paper, you probably won't have this problem. I am just using regular, very thin construction paper, and that is why I'm having a little bit of issue with the paper whiffling. So I'm almost finished with this part. And next I'll set these aside and let them dry. And then we'll come back and finish our project in just a second, guys. All right, guys, so now that I'm finished with this part, I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut my balloon out really quick. All right, guys, my balloon is all cut out. Next, I want to take it and I want to glue it to my background. So let's do that really quick. Were you able to get yours glued on? I hope so. I can't wait to see how you guys created your balloons and the different types of lines and designs and colors you have on them in your background. Make sure you email me your pictures, and I hope you guys had a great time today. Thanks. See you next week.